Welcome everyone to session 4 of the Tribal Engagement and Indigenous-led Public Health Disaster Research Listening Session Series. Sorry. Today we are gonna discuss questions about the future directions for public health disaster research in Indigenous communities. But before we do so, we want to start with a land acknowledgement. So the University of Colorado Boulder acknowledges that it is located on the traditional territories of ancestral homelands of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and many other Native American nations. Their forced removal from these territories have caused devastating and lasting impacts. This Center for Native American and Indigenous Studies at the University of Colorado Boulder has added to this land acknowledgement because they believe that a meaningful land acknowledgement statement should include information about how you plan to address historical wrongs and inequalities. For instance, if you are a non-Indigenous person, you might consider acknowledging the benefits you have received in exchange for the unjust ways that lands were occupied and acquired with commitments of time, money, or service to organizations that serve Indigenous peoples in your area. CNICE suggests that contributions be significant, such as giving 1% of your annual salary or dedicating a little more than an hour and a half of service per week, which is equivalent to 1% of a 40-hour work week. So yeah, so today we wanted to jump into the listening session for really discussing about future opportunities of research within Indigenous communities, within natural disaster and public health research. But before we do so, we wanted to do a round robin where everyone introduces themselves and please state your title, what kind of research background you have, that may be relevant to these listening session series. And also if you've ever worked with an Indigenous community directly, please take more time to discuss or talk about that more with us. And also if you're just here to listen and learn, also just tell us more about like who you are and how you believe your research background can contribute to these Indigenous listening sessions or research within Indigenous communities. So we'll start with whoever's first on my screen. Zen, if you want to go.
Hi, my name is Zhen Cong. I'm a professor at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, School of Public Health, currently Department of Environmental Health Sciences. My background is in gerontology, so I've studied intergenerational relationships and older adults' well-being and physical health, mental health, and I studied recently my research focused on older adults' vulnerability and resilience to disasters. And in a recent publication, I analyzed the racial differences in disaster preparedness, and I found some interesting things across different groups of people, and they ignited my interest in, in Indigenous people. And I have collaborators who are interested in studying wildfires, and I think that is very relevant, and especially if I can contribute from the intergenerational relationship perspective, I think that will be a kind of unique strength for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Megan Morty, would you go next?
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Morty. I'm a research associate at the Natural Hazards Center, and I'm definitely in the more listen and learn side of the spectrum. So my background is, I'm an ethnographer and I do qualitative research. And right now I'm helping oversee and supervise projects on public health in the U.S. territories, rural areas, and Indigenous communities. So I don't have direct experience working in tribal areas, but I'm definitely interested in learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Bridget, would you go next?
Hi, everyone. My name is Bridget Mark, and I'm a PhD student in the sociology department at CU Boulder, and I'm also a research assistant at the Natural Hazard Center this summer. My research focused on a movement against the Line 3 tar sands pipeline in Minnesota, and I looked at coalition building between white and Indigenous folks who were there to resist the pipeline, and many of the folks who were there who were Indigenous were Anishinaabe, but there was, cross Indigenous folks from all over at the movement to resist the pipeline. And as you can tell, that's not specifically related to public health and disasters. So I think I'm here because I'm interested in learning more about that intersection and hearing what everyone has to say.
Well, thank you, Bridget. Mary, would you go next?
Hey everyone, my name is Mary Angelica Painter, and I'm a postdoctoral research associate for the Natural Hazard Center. My research centers on contextualizing, understanding, and measuring social vulnerability in a specific 10-state region in the United States, which is home to a lot of Indigenous people and tribal areas. And I'm also a listen and learn person, as I really want to try to understand how tribal areas and Indigenous people are specifically vulnerable to natural hazards and disasters, while also gaining insight to how they perceive their own vulnerability and resilience in those same contexts. So that's me.
Thank you, Mary. Rebecca, would you mind going next?
Hi, good afternoon or good morning or whatever. I'm Rebecca Wirtz. I'm a faculty member at the School of Public Health at the University of Minnesota. I'm actually an infectious disease physician and emergency manager by training. And we have we're building out a large scholarship program for Native American students who want to get MPHs. And so I'm here to learn more about what some of the skill sets are and the knowledge bases that our students should know when they finish. But I'm definitely here in a listen and learn mode. Thanks.
Thank you. That sounds so interesting. Rachel, would you go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Adams, and I am a research associate at the Natural Hazard Center. My background is in public health, and like many of you here, I'm in a listen and learn mode, trying to learn as much from this group. But I actually am involved in some projects now that do touch on the experience of Indigenous tribes in disasters and trying to kind of leverage Indigenous sovereignty. And those two projects are one that Megan previously mentioned, and Lori popped the link into the chat, where we are managing the Public Health Disaster Research Award Program, where our most recent call focused, expanded our reach outside of the US territories to also look at rural areas and tribal communities. And then in addition to that, I, along with some other folks, including Bridget, who's here today, are working on a Indigenous sovereignty module that was adapted from some materials that were created by this group for a FEMA funded training. And so we are now trying to transition that information over into one of our Converge training modules, where we focus on the different ways that, disasters and hazards have impact Indigenous communities, but also all the incredible ways that they've used their sovereignty to address and mitigate the impact of hazards and disasters.
Thank you, Rachel. Melissa, would you go next?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melissa Aubrey. I'm currently a master's student in disaster resilience leadership at Tulane University in New Orleans. And I'm here in a listening and learning mode mostly. This is the first listening session I've been able to make in this series. And, I'm in the process of kind of figuring out where I want my work and research and practice to land, but I'm definitely interested in climate adaptation and how Indigenous communities kind of work through those challenges. And I'm working on a project here in Southeast Louisiana with partnering with a couple of at least one Indigenous tribe right now, but maybe some more as we go regarding kind of some post-Hurricane Ida processes and how it's been affecting the communities. And that was a hurricane in 2021. And then I'm also assisting on a land to sea grant that involves some hubs through Rising Voices that are looking at climate adaptation. So kind of starting to put my toe in the water of learning and seeing where I can contribute.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. Megan McLemore.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan McLemore, and I just finished up my freshman year at CU Boulder. I am here in a listen and learn capacity doing research for the Environmental Center here at CU Boulder, just to learn about disasters, hazards, and how they affect Indigenous communities to help educate our student population here in Boulder.
Awesome. Thanks. Thank you, Megan. John Nella, would you go next?
Yep. Hi, my name is Jenna Rose. Come from the Shoshone-Bannock Ute tribes. I live here in Oakland, California. I'm the co-director, co-founder of Sogorea Land Trust, and we're a urban-led Indigenous women's group, Indigenous-led urban land trust, and we have 13 pieces of land. But we've been working with NOAA on a project about climate change, climate resilience. This is my first meeting. And we also have what we call Hametka, which in the Ohlone Chochenyo language means strong and prepared. So we have these little emergency hubs. They're shipping containers where we have, we store 4,000 gallons of fresh drinking water. We have thousands of gallons of rainwater. We have some really quite large gardens. We grow a lot of corn, so we store a lot of food. So we're prepared to feed 50 people several meals a day for a couple of weeks. And so we have generators, we have solar panels. We've worked on it for a number of years now, but we're trying to set up these little hubs all over on each piece of land that we take care of. So that's what we're doing. This is my first meeting, really interested. I just saw it on the email yesterday, so I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Well, we're glad you joined us. Thank you.
Really quick. Okay, thank you. Turn myself off.
Cynthia Sanders, would you go next? Cynthia. Kathy Lynn, would you go next?
That my internet connection may not be very stable, but my name is Cynthia Sanders, and you can see in the background I'm from College of the Mississippi. Research that's related to indirectly with climate change just that we see in our everyday area. But right now we're working on developing an edible food forest on campus and area to encourage them to grow pawpaw trees.
Yeah, you kind of are breaking up. Cynthia, do you mind like entering your stuff in the chat?
Okay, so I think that'd be better.
Yeah. Kathy, would you mind going next?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kathy Lynn. I coordinate the Pacific Northwest Tribal Climate Change Project. I'm based in Eugene, Oregon, and I'm really excited I could join you all today, mostly in a listen and learn capacity. One of the things that I do through the network is to share information about programs and funds and resources that will assist tribes in adapting to climate change and addressing climate change. And public health is a huge component of this. And there are a number of efforts underway right now where I think the work that you're all doing could have, really great contributions, like the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals is working on the second iteration of the Status of Tribes and Climate Change report, which is an input into the National Climate Assessment. And so there's, just I'm looking forward to listening in today. I have been sharing these listening sessions through our network to get information about what you're doing to the tribes that I connect with. And yeah, thank you for inviting me to participate today.
Well, thank you for joining us. Tafa, would you mind going next?
Yes. Hi, I'm Tafa Tukwala. I'm from the American Samoa University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. I'm currently in Saipan. I just came across the email just now, so sorry for joining in late. Our center focuses a lot around human security from a disability lens, and hence why we cover a wide variety of aspects that threatens the lives of people with disabilities to be fully included.
Well, thank you for joining us. Silvana, would you mind going next?
Hi, sure. So my name is Silvana Krupp, and I work here at the University of Alabama with the Alabama Transportation Institute. And I have started working on counter human trafficking since 2013, when I was at the National Academy's Transportation Research Board annual meeting. And the director for one of the branches at the United States Department of Transportation told the story about how they received a visit from the Trucking Association explaining that their merchandise were being stolen at the rest stop, and the drivers were being distracted by victims of human trafficking offering sex. And then they asked FBI to step in and found out that not only the victims of human trafficking were involved in this, but the sale of the merchandise being stolen was actually feeding terrorism. So they asked for help. And I worked at the Delaware Department of Transportation, and in the operations area. And I said, well, we have Amber Alert, Silver Alert. Can we have something kind of like a Blue Alert? So I opened my mouth, I got the job, right? And I was asked to help the federal government to push out ideas for research and discussion so we could get this work enhanced. And so I've been more formally engaged in this since 2013 because of that. So right now I'm looking at industry systems and transportation technology. How do we actually work on this? And I am aware that a lot of the victims of human trafficking are from tribes here in the United States and abroad. So I'm kind of like very interested in how can I actually join the conversation to see if I can learn more and be of value. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Chevy, would you mind speaking? I know you introduced yourself in the chat, but.
Hi, yeah, give me 1 second. Sorry, my mic's kind of been in and out. Yeah, my name is Chevy Bullington Condon, and I am a public health specialist here in Oklahoma for the Southern Plains Tribal Health Board / Oklahoma Tribal Epidemiology Center. I initially started my career off here in COVID-19 case investigation and disease surveillance, and have recently shifted over to emergency preparedness and response in Indian country. And so here we serve 43 recognized tribes across Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, in any capacity really of that they need. We focus more than just emergency preparedness and response. And I'm here to just, as I'm pretty new in this role, to learn and grow and kind of find new ways to reach the tribes here and kind of how I can bridge those gaps. And right now, I am focusing on jurisdictional risk assessments. I'm currently partnered with one tribe here in Oklahoma to kind of go through and kind of identify those gaps and build that capacity and kind of whatever that we can do. So.
Okay, that sounds amazing. Thanks for joining us. Christine, do you mind going? You're still on mute, Christine.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Christine Benally, Dr. Christine Benally, and I've worked with the federal government as a commissioned officer for close to 30 years in the area of epidemiology, and my background is in public administration and environmental health. I've worked with, well, retired now, but I'm back on a civil service with the administration for strategic planning and response and preparedness. And I'm in the Southwest. I'm located in New Mexico, working remotely. And we have in our program, we've had MRC, MSDS, and the funds are made available to tribes, organizations, states, territories for hospital preparedness and different type of preparedness. And I've also think that in all of this disaster, whatever tribes talk about government to government jurisdiction, we need to be sure to protect our culture, religious sacred spaces, ceremonial sites. And I think as tribes, and in order to protect this, we know preparedness is, we've known areas or practice prevention. And so that's all part of preparedness. And I think a lot of times the tribes are faced because of reservation status is lack of land ownership, and that ties in with air, water, and land quality. So I think that that's a big hurdle, or I guess a form of oppression still. And so anyway, I'll just leave it at that for now as part of my introduction. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being with us. Who is that? Eugene, would you go next?
Hey, I'm Gene. I'm here with the grandkids in Fort Worth. That's why I'm in Fort Worth. The baby, the youngest son. And I said, "Why are you in Fort Worth?" Anyway, I'm retired Coast Guard. Originally I'm a river rat from northern Vermont, by Abenaki, French Canadian. My mother's full blood, and I'm now in Fort Worth, and I retired, 2 federal agencies. Now I'm going to grad school, UNT, in health literacy. I got my, they have a program with me. They gave me money to become a Texas community health worker. So I took the classes, and I'm on grad school doing health literacy. I find, well, the statistics, is 8 out of 10 people don't get enough health information. And then also a little side gig, I teach babies how to swim. During the summer, I teach them. It's called infant survival swimming. And I do that on a side gig. It's nice on weekends. It's here in Texas right now, it's 115 degrees. So it's the guy, old Coastie said, "Why you do that?" Says, "You haven't been in Fort Worth, Texas during the summer." I mean, I've been here for about 5 years, and it's hot. It gets hot and ridiculous humidity. And so I'm old engine. I always here in the school district here, they get Keller Indians. I always tease them. Yeah, well, yeah, really. Anyway, I'm interested in people ask what are you on? I'm not human. I'm Abenaki. People of the dawn. All this pronoun stuff. I'm Abenaki. People of the dawn. Anyway, That's my intro.
Well, thank you for joining us. Rajan, would you mind going next? Or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but
I think they unmuted or not unmuted, put it in the chat earlier that their actual name is Sophie.
oh, Sophie. Okay.
Are you still there, Sophie? You might not be, but they did drop in an intro in the chat.
Okay. Well, Ines, do you mind going next?
Hi, y'all. I'm Ines. I'm with the Oregon Health Authority. I saw someone else from my team actually jumped in, which is great because I had to, right off the bat, apologize that I can only be here for the first half hour. So I've gotten to hear who all you cool people are. And both Dina and I work with health security preparedness and response. So we're in the public health response unit there at OHA. And of course, all of our tribal partners are a huge part of that and a huge group, especially as we're looking at wildfires and smoke impacts now in the coming summer months and the hazards there. So constantly looking for how we can listen and learn and work better at addressing disasters. And this is the perfect group for that. I've been able to pop into a few of the sessions. So thank you for bringing this group together. And sorry to hi and bye, but I will get the updates then from my team.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Sabine.
Hi, hello. I hope you can hear me. Nice to meet you. Thanks for the possibility to be here. I also read it yesterday, so I'm really glad to join this. I'm a student of migration and integration studies in Austria. So I will come and visit the US and the Nez Perce tribe in August and September, so quite soon. And I will do their traineeship and work for my master's thesis. I'm working on my master's thesis with the topic of climate adaptation capacities of tribes in the US Northwest. And the Nez Perce tribe invited me to do the traineeship at their place at Water Resources Division. So I can learn about their adaptive capacities and also about their, of course, vulnerabilities, but also agencies. And this is what I'm interested in, climate change, adaptation, agencies, and capacities. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. Dina, you mind going?
Hi, good morning. My name is Dina Marshall, and I put a little intro in the chat. It's nice to see you all. With Inez, I'm over at the Oregon Health Authority in the unit that Health Security Preparedness and Response Unit. It's the Public Health Emergency Unit in the Public Health Division. And I'm the training coordinator. So I build out the calendar for the trainings for our agency and our community partners. This email popped up just the other day and it looked great. So thanks for letting me be here with you today.
Thanks for joining us. Kelsey.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, sun's shining on me. I'm Kelsey. I am with University of Alaska Fairbanks up here in Alaska, and I work for the Center for One Health Research. Our department is also currently merging with the Center for Rural and Community Development. So we do a lot of work out in the rural communities with the Indigenous population. And then we're in the process of being tasked right now with creating a new research team specifically for the Rural and Community Development Center. They did not have one that could be specifically aimed for the rural communities. So we're in the process of putting that together and allowing a little more, more interaction and more say from the rural communities. So we're very interested in traditional ecological knowledge and incorporating that into our research. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. So today's theme of this session is future directions and opportunities. And we really want to know, like, what are the future directions of public health disaster research in Indigenous communities? So a few of the questions we developed for this session is, one, what are funding opportunities that are available through different organizations, agencies, or tribal colleges to fund scholars, particularly Indigenous scholars who are working in this area of public health and disaster research? And also, two, what are the research fields related to public health and disaster research that we need to collaborate with? And three, how do we sustain our efforts for future collaboration, for future work, for to achieve long-term goals? So anyone's free to start the discussion, or I will post the questions in the chat as well so you can read them.
And I also think we had a couple of newcomers who joined as people were introducing themselves that I don't think we got to. We can get to them while everybody thinks about the questions and considers them, and then we can get the discussion going. Laura, I think you came in. I don't believe you introduced yourself.
No, I didn't. Thank you for that. And thank you everyone for the gathering. So my name is Laura Kaplans. I work for Pekani Lodge Health Institute. And I don't know exactly what I've jumped into other than I was like, this is important. And I'm curious to see what other voices are saying and what other communities are engaging with. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. And is it Kristen?
Hello there. My name is Kirsten Maltese. I'm at FEMA Region 8. My apologies for tardiness, and thank you so much for letting me join this. Similarly to Laura, I was just curious about some of the topic. Wish I could have attended more of them, but a busy month of travel and things like that. So just grateful to be here. And apologies if you heard any of those planes going by just a moment ago if you're in Colorado. So that was just in my background.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. And I guess we are the facilitators to introduce ourselves as well. Do you want to go first, Melissa?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Villarreal. I am co-facilitator with Shelby for these sessions. I am a PhD student in sociology at the University of Colorado Boulder and a research assistant at the Natural Hazard Center. And so I have had the privilege of helping Shelby put these sessions together and working to facilitate these discussions. I myself am not Indigenous. I don't work in Indigenous communities, but I work with Mexican immigrants and do a lot of work in Houston, Texas, which is my hometown and where I am currently at with this horrible heat wave. And yeah, so I have experience working with community engaged research, and I do think this is such an important topic and community to engage. And so I'm so glad that some of you are here and that the rest of you are here to learn. And I am really excited about discussing these questions. And Shelby, I know your research more closely aligns with these topics. So I think it would be great if you shared some of that too with your intro.
All right. Well, hi everyone. I'm Shelby Ross. I'm a member of the Oglala Sioux tribe. I was born and raised on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in southwestern South Dakota. Right now, I'm a PhD candidate within the geography department, and I am a part of the Tribal Climate Leaders Program that has been introduced by the NCCAS in partnership with CU Boulder. And with this opportunity, I was able to design a research project or my dissertation around tribal climate change issues, and specifically for the North Central region, which is the Northern Great Plains. And so my background interests are climate change, Native American health, and traditional ecological knowledge. And I really wanted to bridge these three topics into my dissertation because I believe they're all connected and need more. There's a need for more research for these type of topics in the North Central region for Native Americans. So my dissertation is focusing on extreme weather events and their impacts on type 2 diabetes in the region, because type 2 diabetes is a pretty big epidemic in the for the Native Americans in this region. And it was really hard to decide on a how topic that climate change is impacting for Native Americans, because we already exist, our lived realities of having these high disproportionate health disparities within our communities. So it's really hard to decide how climate change is influencing certain health conditions when all these health conditions already exist in our communities. So I decided to focus on how climate change is impacting or going to exacerbate these health conditions, and in a way to help prepare our tribes to incorporate health into our climate change adaptation plans. I did look over quite a few adaptation plans for the region, and many of them are lacking in health and health impacts for the tribal members. So I felt that was a need for my research. I'm also did a year of employment with my tribe in the natural resources department. I have a master's in environmental science and engineering and a bachelor's degree from my local tribal college, the Oglala Lakota College. So I'm pretty dedicated to this work, and then I'm glad to be here and lead these sessions. I'm really thankful that I got the opportunity to help with this research. Savannah, do you have a question?
I actually just want to make a little disclosure, if you don't mind. My PhD is in building resilience to critical infrastructure systems. And I come from a holistic perspective of disasters. And I was probably one of the first people of finishing a PhD that was focused in resilience to building systems, right? With the bipartisan bill and the reorganization and sovereignty of the tribes started having a lot of independence in transportation. And so I'm coming from this side of looking at, how can we actually organize the planning, the operations, the mitigation, adaptation, everything for tribes. So I mentioned the human trafficking, because if you don't have healthy environments for the people, then you actually have a human factor impact that will not collaborate for you to build the true resilience in any place. So I just wanted to disclose that, the disaster side that I'm coming from has all these different nuances. So the climate change, the extreme events, depending on whatever political party people want to talk about. And, but also, really looking into the changing of places and how do you detect create the data by using technology for detect, data and use into the research spaces and everything. So I'm sorry, when I introduced myself, I only said one part of the stuff. So that's why I asked, please let me finish, just telling you what else I can do. And I'll be more than happy to, exchange additional conversations with you and everybody else if what I have as background is of value. Thank you.
Lori, do you want to briefly talk about yourself a little bit?
First, I just want to say thank you, Shelby and Melissa, and everyone here has so much of value to bring. This has just been really, these 4 sessions have been extraordinary, learning from everyone. So thank you for bringing us together. And I guess I'll just add briefly, I'm very interested in these sessions and what we've been learning, both in terms of convening. Melissa and Shelby have been reflecting after each session about what has worked and might work better. And so that has been very powerful in terms of the process. And also we've really been looking to these sessions in terms of what we've learned in substance. And I really just want to, again, thank Melissa and Shelby for the arc that they've had in this series in terms of identifying challenges and capacities, and then moving towards this question around future sustainability. And so that's been really inspiring. And I think one piece I'll add, looking out there at Rachel Adams, a couple of years ago, she led a paper that several of us here at the Natural Hazard Center worked on using CDC data, where we looked at over time mortality by forces of nature, specifically looking at demographic characteristics related to race and ethnicity and age in various natural hazards. And the key finding of the paper was that American Indian and Alaska Native elderly males were disproportionately likely to die in natural hazard events. And so, as with all secondary data, studies have painted a very powerful statistical portrait, but then it left us with the question of what are the underlying social forces that were driving those disparities? And also ultimately our forever question at the Natural Hazard Center, what can we do once those disparities are revealed? And so I think that's sort of substantively one of the projects that, again, with all kudos to Rachel for leading that I came into these sessions really thinking about that. And again, just thank you, Melissa and Shelby, for giving us a space to share and to open up these questions.
Awesome. So if anyone wants to jump in and answer some of the research questions that we have with your, maybe just, give an opportunity to educate us on the struggles you've experienced while running programs within Indigenous communities, or as an Indigenous person wanting to make change happen within your community. Anything's really is okay for these sessions.
And I do, Kathy shared in the chat some information about the online tribal climate change funding guide. And so this is great information. I have definitely saved that, but Kathy, if you would like to unmute and share more about that and what specifically we can do as a group to contribute to that, or what you're needing, what you're looking for, and yeah, to share more.
Thank you. Sure. So for the past 10 years, we've been trying to track funding opportunities that would help tribes address a whole range of issues related to climate change. And clearly there is so much overlap with disasters and with public health. And so what I'm always looking for are things that we're missing. What else can we be adding to this guide? Funding opportunities specifically so that tribes who are trying to look holistically at climate change can access as much funding as they can for funding or for planning and implementation. So anytime you come across a grant that you think would be relevant for tribes addressing climate change that tribes are eligible for, we can just go ahead and post those. We update this on a weekly basis. Okay. You'll also see there are some other tabs, and these are more out of date because of capacity and because of how quickly things change. But we do have a tab for public health, specifically public health related resources and disaster resources. And so this is something where if I have a student who has a particular interest in one of these topics, or maybe I work with a lot of tribal students at the U of O. And so if their tribe is working on a particular area of focus, I'll say, hey, if you can find a bunch of resources, we can go ahead and add them to these tabs. So that's another opportunity here, is as you're all working towards specific research goals, we can be adding resources at any time to this guide. And I would say that tribes are utilizing this as they're developing their own vulnerability assessments or adaptation plans, looking for resources or models of what other tribes are doing. We do try to keep that adaptation plan tab really up to date as possible, because I think that's probably one of the most valuable things is for tribes to be able to look to what other tribes are doing and how their plans may be taking shape. So more than anything, I would just look forward to input from all of you, from your networks and colleagues, about how we can improve this guide and make it more kind of relevant and increase access to these kinds of resources for tribes.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Kathy.
Cynthia also dropped some answers to the questions in the chat. I think they had to drop off though, because I don't see Cynthia in the group anymore. But they have some great resources here, which might be something that can be added to your guide, Kathy, if they aren't already on there. And they actually brought up something that I think is really interesting. I think it's meant to be for question number 3, how do we sustain our efforts of collaboration moving forward? And they mentioned a data hub for sharing data in a culturally respectful way. I wonder if there are any efforts like that already, or there are examples of them, maybe not necessarily in Indigenous communities or Indigenous research, but that have worked for other communities that are good examples for us to build off of. I think is a great idea and something we can talk about more.
I know there's a lot of work happening right now on Indigenous data sovereignty and governance that might be really relevant and relates maybe to this note about data hub sharing in a culturally respectful way. The University of Arizona Native Nations Institute has a really incredible program. I'll drop the link in here for anyone who's interested.
Right. I've heard of efforts before, and like this concern being raised even amongst like the tribes and tribal governments. But it really does cost a lot of money to like invent a data sovereignty network. So maybe if future fundings could maybe address or help with that. But yeah, I am not aware of like anything that's established yet as a go-to resource.
That would be if there was.
Hello. Oh, sorry.
sorry.
Go ahead. This is Christine. I just wanted to respond to or add my comments on the data sovereignty issues and the sovereignty that leads to jurisdictions. For years, I've worked with the states of New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah, Navajo to retrieve the data that they have specific to Navajo data, and we're able to implement some prevention activities and control activities. I was assigned to different projects back east in DC and Atlanta area, so I was removed from working with specifically the tribe. But when I returned, there was talk about data sovereignty, and I saw that as well. I was told that upon a data request, I was told that the tribes did not want to have their data be released or be in a report because it made the tribe look bad. And I think that's the communication that we need to convey to those who see it as that, because it's a benchmark, and I don't think it makes anybody look bad, in a bad situation, anybody could be bad, depending on where in the world you are and what you're looking at. But to not share the data because it makes you look bad, I think is a wrong approach, because it's a baseline that you could use, and it's situational awareness. It is a public health situation if it is considered bad, but you could use that to obtain more resources. And and again, a lot of times it depends on the interpretation, the limitations, the collection, the surveillance. And so I think that that's where the communication needs to be, is not to hoard the data, so to speak, and to share it so that it can be used to improve the quality of healthcare, public health services, housing, whatever is needed. And we are, I think, as tribal community, we're well aware of the different types of disasters, not just climate, or not just environmental, not just whatever it may be, due to the trauma and whatever we've been historically been exposed to. So I think that, and that's just my experience with data sovereignty. More recently, especially with the pandemic, there was just a lot of, I guess, more resistance to share data and to provide the findings of that back to the community, and how to prevent further cases, and just a lack of sharing with the states so that you could get resources funneling to the tribes, because federal programs provide states funding, and it's a lot of times up to the tribe and the states to share those resources. So I until at some point in the future, federal funds, say like from CDC, can be directly provided to the tribes, then and with the limitations of resources, and Shelby did mention, it's a lot of resources and funds to set up your own surveillance. We tried to do that with a suicide surveillance, and it was just a lot of training, again, situational awareness, and trying to advocate the need for it. And again, just maybe some people within the tribe not seeing that it's necessary. They've become basically normalized that, and even that's the case with domestic violence, and a lot of that leads to the missing, the murdered, because people just and a lot of times it's families doing that. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling right now, but I just wanted to say that about the data issues. Thank you for the time.
Well, thank you for your input, Christine. It's definitely valuable information. Sylvia, you have something to add?
Yes, I would like to add some to this request to sharing information just now. So some of the complicated approaches to this, and because I mentioned the human trafficking when I first introduced myself, has to do with the value of the human being as a whole. And one of the things that I am observing is the fact that, the worst case of human trafficking is by taking pieces away from people and selling in the market, like a heart, a liver, skin, hair, and everything else. That's called organ trafficking. And some of the very complicated situations that I would definitely say would need a comprehensive approach from the government is the fact that the blood is something very precious to all of us. You know, when we get sick, we need that. We go through disasters, we get hurt, we need that. But there's a market now in regards to the blood of those that took the vaccine or did not. And this is something very sensitive. So I would suggest that if anyone is going to do research on that, basically do work with the government and ICE to be able to have protection. And I'm saying this here because I know that tribes have different religious beliefs. So I am expecting that, you know, tribes might have not also adhere to taking the vaccine. So these are things that are very complicated. Red Cross and many other organizations, when they are looking for blood, they say, we want blood of people that did not take the vaccine. So I know that this may be causing some people here to have goosebumps for me to bringing this up, and I apologize about that. But, you know, once you're doing the research on disasters, you need to be able to look at everything. You know, all the good stuff of how do you help people? How do you plan for your environment? How do you detect flood? And give people warnings about that. That is the other side of things that I think, I don't know how many people here are aware, but there has been like a low-hanging fruit with the fact that like flood data is something that NOAA is working very hard to improve together with FEMA. Nevertheless, the traditional push has been a top-down approach where people look at those satellite data and stuff. But the work that I have been doing for, almost 10 years now is actually looking from data being generated from the bottom up and for people that are considered like special populations or, you know, people that have been left behind and fit into the social equity aspect of it. So just a very quick example, and I'll shut up again. The road weather information system, that is the one that generates a lot of the information about freezing bridges, you know, winds and all of these things, that if you go full system and try to, you know, build and deploy, it costs $400,000 plus the operations during the year. But if you need this type of information to a tribe that is in a place where it's likely to flood, it's kind of like, it's not feasible, it's not possible, right? To buy something, put something like that there, unless you are in a highway and you can partner with the federal government. So these are some of those things that I'm very interested in trying to help with and learn, you know, about, do you actually need something like this? Because the creation of the data where the data is needed, and then you use the technology to be able to help with that. These are some of the very important things that, you know, we've been looking from the social equity side of things. And I think, you know, the tribes have been one of those groups that I'm like, do you actually need this? Is this of importance to you? How do you look at the disasters happening in the tribes, and how are you bringing in this information into the tribes? Because a lot of the information and exchange of information I had the opportunity to have with tribes have been usually with lawyers. And I'm like, oh my goodness, the poor lawyers now have to know about everything. I don't know how they can manage that. So like I said, I have so much to learn, but I really wanted to offer this. You know, there's some areas that we really need to be careful and, you know, help the tribes understand from your religious perspective, from, you know, how do you do work in your organization, you know, for us to be able to really find that common ground where we can collaborate. And just another little disclosure, I have native Brazilian Indian blood in my veins. So not American, but from Brazil. So that's why I'm interested in working with all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, having warning systems is definitely needed within Indigenous communities. Had conversations with people at the recent Rising Voices conference where this conversations were centered around technology and how technology can improve our situations and combating climate change issues. And one of the contributors to Rising Voices, her name's Melissa. I think it's Melissa, but I have to double check. But her last name is Montgomery, and she's an Indigenous person of the Pacific Northwest, and she has really a lot of concerns about incorporating warning systems for her community because they are a little more secluded, and if a bridge gets closed, they're pretty much cut off from the rest of the world. And if a disaster is to happen in their community with the bridges closed, they're kind of just stuck there and left to kind of wait it out. And so, yeah, it's definitely needed. And I know on my reservation, we don't have a really reliable warning system for storms and stuff. And like even having a warning system for like the people with chronic diseases would be good. Like if a big blizzard is coming and you need dialysis, maybe we should have a warning system for them to like, even like in addition to that, to like having a place where they could stay if they do live like way off the road or somewhere in a rural area where they're not going to be able to travel to a dialysis when they need to because the blizzard is coming. Like we should be able to like provide them a place to stay to at least keep their services running. But yeah, time is over. We are over time, but if anyone has any other compelling thoughts they would like to share before we go.
Yes, this is Janella. Yeah, I'm not a researcher, but I'm certainly a community citizen scientist. And one of the things that we do is, I guess I'm on the other end on the ground, but doing a lot of mapping of our communities that we're in and actually exits and entrances and how to get in and out of the community. And in the city, it can be really a problem because we're bordered by freeways and railroad tracks in this particular community. And really, after Katrina, I really realized, and being raised on the reservation, is that people don't come for you when there's a disaster. It's just really, really something, so that, and I realized that, in our urban community that we have to take care of ourselves. And the way we've done that is through mapping, we do wilderness street medic training, first aid training, emergency training. We try to train up as many people as we can. And we just finished a training actually a couple weekends ago. And that training is really valuable. And we just keep reviewing. And in our shipping containers, we have everything you can think of. We have Narcan, we have EpiPens, we have tourniquets. We have, I think, just the basics, but I have to say that not a whole lot is needed. We can really take care of ourselves, but we need to be taught how to do that. And I was fortunate to grow up on the reservation. I had a great dad who hunted and fished. We preserved food. And so that's what we do. We dry corn, we preserve food, water. And it's really basic, but it really works. And I just think it's important. And I'm working with NOAA on just that. They just had a visit to one of our centers there, one of our Hametkas, one of our shipping containers. And I take care of almost all of those materials. But I really feel like the average person really does not know where to go when there's a disaster. We have always sitting around waiting for an earthquake, and then also now we have these massive fires that are happening. So we have respirators, we have fire blankets, we have fire equipment, we have 2 really old pickup trucks. but there were just one tiny little community, in Oakland, in 500,000 people live here. What about everybody else? And we live in a predominantly African American, Latino, Native community, and the crime rate is super high right now. It feels really, really dangerous. And so you have that, and then you have this other threat of no water, no electricity. So we do a lot of solar projects. We build a lot of solar kits that are used. A group just came They provide solar kits to people. The Navajo Nation actually just finished there. They did one in South Dakota. They did one here for us. So we build our own kits with our children, with our young people. Things like that are just really basic that I feel like for myself it's important. But I, have a lot of respect for the researchers, and thank you so much for doing that work. Thank you very much.
Yeah, everything you guys are doing with your group sounds amazing, Joanella. Do you have like a resource you can share that can tell us more about your group?
Yeah, I can put you, I'll put the website in the chat.
Awesome.
Here. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. And I do, before we all hop off, just want to recognize our partners in this, in these listening sessions. CNAs, this is the Center for Native American, and I'm missing the last two letters at the top of my head right now. Lori, do you have
Indigenous
that?
Studies.
Indigenous Studies, Rising Voices, and the Bill Anderson Fund. I myself am a Bill Anderson Fund fellow, and so we're so happy that they worked with us to share information about our listening sessions. And Mary had a great question about if we'll be sharing the resources from these sessions. Absolutely. The recordings are on the website, and the reports will be too, I believe, and that will include all resources shared via chat and otherwise. So we are compiling those, but I think that's it. We do have one more session. This is the final virtual one, but we have an in-person one, which Lori just placed in the chat. And we also just have the information in the slides that we can share just so you can see it, but it is in the link. If you will be in Colorado and attending the Natural Hazards Workshop in a week and a half now, I think, then please join us on Sunday, July 9th at 3:45 Mountain Standard Time, or and join us to talk more about these issues, particularly around intercultural collaborations and tribal engagement strategies. And so yeah, we would be so happy to have you if you are around. And if you are not, please know that we completely valued everything that you have shared with us virtually over the last 4 weeks, or today if you had not been able to join in the previous ones. We really appreciate it.
Yep. And thank you guys for joining us. We hope to see you in person if you are able to.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Melissa, can you share the notes with me so I can go ahead and get started?
Yes. Let me turn off this recording.